Another big Cascades conference matchup that we're looking at this week is 2-2 Napoleon traveling over to 3-1 Hanover-Horton. Scott Ash has had his team in a lot of big games the last couple seasons, and this, while it's earlier in the season, might be as big as any of them. A third loss at this point in the year really would derail Napoleon's chances. But, I mean, they've been in every game this year. With the exception of that Columbia Central game, it was a 2-touchdown loss, but never really in that one, in large part because this guy, Darren Hampton, was still getting his feet wet at the varsity quarterbacking position. Had 4 interceptions that game, but since then has been much improved. The 4 touchdowns against Grass Lake that he connected with Ethan Weatherspoon on all 4 of them. 2 more touchdowns that he and Weatherspoon connected on last week in a loss at Addison and 157 yards. Weatherspoon now more than 400 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. He's really been a reliable threat, but they have seen some good defenses. Addison is very good. Michigan Center also very good. Hanover-Horton just as good as those two in my estimation. Hanover-Horton pitched a shutout last week of Vandercook Lake. The week before gave up just 6 yards to Manchester, or excuse me, 6 points to Manchester, because they held them to -20 rushing yards. That's what we were looking for, and a lot of that is because of this guy in the middle, Tony Garcia, the senior middle linebacker, who's really the quarterback of this defense. Make sure that front 7 is where it needs to be. Make sure those linemen know their gaps that they are in charge of. The ends are holding contain, all that stuff. He really is the quarterback of the defense. And they wouldn't be 3-1, Hanover-Horton wouldn't be, without the quarterback of its offense as well, Frank Bird. Bird having probably the best season of his 3 years now as a varsity quarterback. He's doing it with his legs. He's doing it with his arm. He's found Dakota Manny a couple times for a few scores, who seems to be establishing himself as Bird's favorite threat. But Bird couldn't do it alone without a solid rushing attack behind him, and he has that in Ty Lapshin. Lapshin, more of a speed back. You see him running through Boomer Perry, one of the better tacklers in the Cascades Conference here. But Lapshin is dual threat back. We talk about dual threat quarterbacks. I like to think of him as a dual threat running back. He can run by some people, plenty of speed, but also not afraid to go right between the tackles and run over some guys either. And Chandler Garcia-Vance, he really is a between the tackle, run over some guys as well. And that's why Hanover-Horton's offense has been good this year, averaging more than 30 points per contest. Outside of that, when they were blanked against Michigan Center, it's looked good, putting up more than 40 each of the last 2 games, more than 30 in 3 of the 4. But it's not Hanover-Horton's rushing attack that I think is going to determine this one. It's going to be Napoleon's. Few teams have gotten it going against this Hanover-Horton defense, like we said, giving up just 21 points the last 3 weeks. Just 2 touchdowns of those 21 points. But Duncan Wilson, senior running back for Napoleon, had a great year last year, splitting time with Greg Weatherspoon, Ethan Weatherspoon's older brother. But since he's been the feature back this year, hasn't quite been able to break off some of those big runs that we expected. I'm sure that will be coming, and that's also because he's not just the feature back this year. He has been the primary rusher, but he is now splitting time with Aslan Hunt, who has really impressed given his repetitions earlier this year. You might remember a big 33-yard touchdown run against Michigan Center that gave Napoleon the lead in the second half on their opening drive, and never looked back. But like we've said, not many teams have been able to rush it against this Hanover-Horton front, and that's going to be the key this week. Which team is going to have the better rushing attack? And that goes for the quarterback as well. Whoever can net more rushing yards, that's how both of these teams really move the ball through the air. That's how both these teams move the ball through the air. Hanover-Horton is not quite as capable as Napoleon has shown to be, scoring on a lot of big plays this season, and that's really what I think is going to be the difference in this one. Darren Hampton, Ethan Weatherspoon, just a little too much for the Hanover-Horton secondary to hang with. And that's why I have Napoleon winning this one, which would get them to 3-2, would send Hanover-Horton to 3-2, and depending on that Addison Michigan Center game, They will either have 4 teams within 1 game, or Addison will have a 2-game lead on the other 3. So there's some big implications in this game.